Hello students, let's read the problem. And it says, the time needed to paint a fence varies directly with the length of the fence. If it takes 2.8 hours to paint 55 feet of fence, how long would it take to paint 247.5 feet of fence? Okay, so what is it that we're looking for? Well, it says how long, right? Wouldn't that be like what, time? Yes, right? So we want to know how many hours or how much time would it take to paint 247.5 feet of fence. Is that right? And I do see the word varies directly, right? And they're telling you this is one of the information that you can use to solve the problem. So it says that it takes 2.8 hours to paint 55 feet of fence. Okay, so now the question here is, what could be the X and what could be the Y? Remember, because if we're thinking about varies directly, then I have to think about direct variation. Is that right? And direct variation, I need to come up with an equation that says Y equals KX. And for me to find K, I will need to divide Y divided by X, and I know that K is going to be my constant of proportionality. So that's the one that I will be looking for. Okay? So if I want to find K, I need to know my X and my Y. So let's go back to the problem. So the question here is, what is X and what is Y? Well, remember, the more hours that this person or whoever is doing it, the more hours they do, the more fence they're going to paint. Therefore, the hours is going to be X, right? And the 55 is going to be your Y because that's the feet, right? So now I determine X and Y, so we can go ahead and write down my equation. Y equals KX. And of course, since I want to find K, I will need to divide the Y over the X. And the Y is 55 and the X is 2.8. Okay, so K will be equals to, let's go ahead and divide 55 divided by 2.8. Is that right? And we are going to get 19.64. That would be the K, which is a constant of proportionality. So now I'm going to come back to my problem. And well, before we say that, I know I'm going to have to replace K with this number. So this K, I know what I'm going to replace it with. I'm going to replace it with 19.64. Is that right? Okay, very good. Now, what about the 247.5? What is that? Is that X or is that Y? Because remember, that's going to be very important. Since 247.5 is the feet of fence, and earlier we said that that was the Y, then this number needs to be the Y. You see how important it is for us to determine that, right? Because if I want to use the equation again, that means that I am going to replace Y with that number, 247.5. The K is going to be the 19.64. And the X, I do not know the number. I'm looking for that one. So this is my K, right? My Y value, okay? I'm going to use another color here. The Y value, I replace it right there because that's the one that it was here. Is that right? So be very careful. Don't assume that you are always going to be given the X, okay? So we got to be careful with that. So how do I leave X by itself? Well, this is just an equation, guys. So you're going to have to divide by 19.64. Whatever you do on one side, you do it to the other side. And this cancels, so it's equals to a 1. Therefore, X will be equals to 12.16. Right? And notice how there's only one answer choice with that, right? So therefore, my answer for this, it is going to be letter C. Very good. This was my answer. Okay. Now, if you want to do it as a proportion, we can do it real quick. Okay, so this is my proportion. In a proportion, remember what makes things easier in a proportion is that you don't really need to determine who's X and who's Y. That's like the biggest advantage. You can just go with the labels. For example, 2.8 is hours. So I know I'm comparing the hours and the feet of fence. That's what maybe proportions is a lot easier for some students, right? Okay, so here I'm gonna say that it takes 2.8 hours to complete 55 feet of fence. Is that right? And we have 247.5 and it says feet of fence. Therefore, it goes on your denominator. And this will be my hours, right? And proportions, remember, all you got to do is you do cross multiplication. So if you want to, you can multiply 247.5 times 2.8. Go ahead and put them in the calculator. Once you get an answer for that, I want you to divide. Remember, you're going to divide by 55 because that's the way we do proportions, right? You multiply and then you divide. And that will give me the hours equals to, and you should get the same thing, 12.6 or 12.16. And that's the reason why many people said, no, miss, I want to do proportions. Well, it's up to you. I'm still presenting it for you, right? But I want and I need for you guys to practice on your direct variation, right? Very good.